All right. Wait, why is this? Oh, there we go. All right. So, hi guys. So I am back after 2 years of not making any response videos or anything like that. A lot has gone on in those 2 years. I moved to Colorado, started a PhD program out here, and I've just been really busy. And yesterday, somebody told me about some Message to Atheists video that I wanted to respond to. I tried to make a response video to that. However, the audio of that person who I was responding to failed to record, and so I didn't end up publishing that. There wasn't much substance in that video anyway, so I will be making a response video to some other Message to Atheist videos that I find on YouTube. But before we get into those, and I don't know yet if this is going to be one part, two videos, whatever. Remember that I blind react to all of these things, so my first time when I record myself responding to the videos, this is my first time seeing the video. Anyway, I just wanted to put out a little bit of a PSA real quick. I am seeing an alarming trend on social media, especially TikTok, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was happening other places. Car theists are taking things up a notch. Rather than just driving and recording, they are going live on social media while driving. And when you go live on a lot of these things, you have to be looking at your screen quite a bunch because you're reading comments that people are posting in the live chat, responding. Not safe. I don't want anybody to be a victim of distracted driving. I would hate for anybody to kill themselves or someone else because they were distracted while driving because they were doing a live while driving. If I don't agree with you on something, even the God thing, I still don't wish bad on you. So please do not TikTok live and drive. Alright, we're gonna get into the messages videos now. So our first video we're going to be responding to is who the fuck is this dude? Breaking in the Habit. If you are an atheist, I have a quick question for you. Okay, let's see if I can answer.
Atheists.
Hi.
Thanks for clicking on this video. It means a lot to me, really. I'm a religious guy who's devoted my life to a God you don't believe in, so...
Yes, now cut to the chase.
You're taking a bit of a risk here that I might insult you, make you feel bad about your life, or at the very...
Try me.
least, waste your time. I really do appreciate it, and I hope not to do any of those things here. Rather, I'd like to pose a question to you.
Okay.
It's a very simple question, in fact. It is more of an exhortation from me to you. This question is not meant to trick you or...
Alright, I just have to say one thing, and I don't want to spend too long on this point, but a lot of people, myself included, have ADHD. This is 40 seconds now where your video, which claims to have a question or a message to a demographic I belong to, has not yet gotten to that question. Now, if you have the goal of reaching as many people as possible, you really should be considering the attention span of your audience. Okay? If you are concerned about getting a message out to everybody possible, you have to anticipate there are going to be some people who, when, you spend 40 seconds going through just word salad, and I don't mind word salad in small bits, but come on, you just need to be a little bit more concise.
virtue. I don't have some super ingenious question that will somehow inspire faith in a deity, as much as I'd love to. I'd rather...
I mean, that shouldn't be our ultimate goal. We want evidence. We don't want to be inspired to have faith. We want to accept true things and reject false things, or, for things that haven't been demonstrated as true. We don't want to get in the habit of just accepting them as truth, especially when it's something as important as Christianity, wherein, not accepting Jesus is eternal damnation. If that's actually the case, and if, me sincerely believing in this God is so important, I need to be shown demonstrably that this is actually true.
Just like to challenge you. You say that you're an atheist, that you don't believe in gods, and I just
Yeah.
want to know one thing. Are you a good one?
I mean, a good atheist? I mean, I'd say probably, like, I'm good at not believing in God for whatever that's worth. Um, like, I don't know, where you're going with this.
Are you a good atheist? It's a question that I ask with two things in mind. The first being related to morality. While religion in general, and Christianity in particular, doesn't necessarily make someone a moral person.
See, I'm glad he's acknowledging that. I don't want to get into the habit of, saying that your religious beliefs have any effect on your behavior. I do have some reservations about a belief system where anything wrong you do on this earthly life can be forgiven by your sky daddy if you say sorry sincerely enough. But, there are plenty of Christians who I know who are very decent people, whether or not their religious beliefs play into that, I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't care. My concern is with how people act. I could go into, the fact that 93% of convicted sex offenders identify as Christian, but I'm not going to worry about that for, the sake of this video, because this guy is not making the claim that you need Christianity, sorry, to be a good moral person.
These ways of life do necessarily demand morality of adherence. There is a
No, Christianity just demands a faith in Jesus. It demands acceptance of Jesus as the Son of God and the person that takes away your sins. And as long as before you die on earth you have accepted Jesus and been forgiven by Jesus for your sins, it doesn't really matter what you do. And that is an objection that I have. Now, I know that there are some Christian sects or denominations where it's not just faith alone that gets you saved. I don't know exactly what the Bible says about this particular matter, and I'm sure that, it says both things, which is why there's so much disagreement between different Christian denominations. Um, but that aside, I think that there is something a little bit backwards about a system where being good is kind of optional as long as you know how to play your cards right, especially when that system, ultimately doesn't send good people who do good things to other people to eternal bliss with God if they don't actually believe in that God.
particular code of life that one must live. In the case of Catholic Christianity, that code is one of peace and justice, mercy and forgiveness.
Does anybody know what the Crusades were? Now, I don't want to, you know, go on a tangent here, but it was the Catholics who, started the Crusades, and a lot of people died.
It's a code that seeks to care for the poor and seek reparations for those who take advantage of the vulnerable. Now, Lord knows we don't always live up to our founder and have actually done some pretty atrocious things through the years, but it is our faith that at least informs us when we do these things and gives us and reminds us a moral code to live by, reminds us that it's not an option. We must strive to be good people. Now, as someone who doesn't have this foundation, who doesn't believe in a God or adhere to a religion, there is no superstructure making this demand.
Um, I would beg to differ, and just bear with me for a minute, but I would say that the majority of humans have a shared desire to promote the well-being of not only themselves but everybody around them. And one of the ways that we do that is by behaving in ways that serve everyone around us. When we have a healthy community, when we have people who are happy, taken care of, who are, safe, we ourselves who are living amongst these people are also happy, healthy, safe, and, otherwise doing well. Um, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a theist to recognize this. You don't have to have any religious belief to recognize when another human is in pain, when another human needs some sort of help. You don't have to have a religious belief to have a desire to help. And this is something that other animals display just as much as we do. Now, it's not just empathy. Um, and the reason I say it's not just empathy is because empathy is something that's a little bit harder to quantify than just simply a, I don't want to say need, but a modality of being social. You see animals, especially like dogs and multiple primate species, a lot of mammals mostly, but you'll also see it in social insects who will go ahead and have the ability to not only recognize when there is a conspecific who is in some sort of danger, in some sort of, you know, peril, and work to try and help that individual. Um, in bees, wasps, and ants, for example, there will be instances where one individual comes back from a foraging trip and can smell if another individual is deficient in a certain nutrient and will regurgitate some of the food that it has collected in order to allow that other individual to fix its deficiency. And that's helpful for the entire colony because then, once that individual has regained some health, you now have multiple extra foragers that can go out and get more food for that colony rather than that individual being stingy. These behaviors are innate in a lot of things that are not human. Um, you even have plants, and some of this is mediated by the root funguses that they associate with, but you have plants that when one plant is being attacked by an insect herbivore, it can actually send out chemicals in the ground, and those chemicals serve to alert other plants nearby that there is an herbivore, and then those plants that are exposed to that exudate from the roots will start to form poisonous compounds that could help fight off that herbivore. Now, whether or not that is, you know, the plant deliberately sending out those exudates to warn other plants, or the other plants being evolutionarily selected to just cue in on that, I don't really know. It's probably just something that has evolved as a mechanism of detection rather than alert. But nonetheless, other organisms are capable of acting in the best interests of other individuals, especially when, by acting in the best interests of other individuals, that secures your own well being over being selfish.
Demand on your life. No one telling you how to live in certain situations. Without a belief in an afterlife, there might be a feeling that all the world is futile, so what difference does it make?
There are people who believe that, um, and this is one of my concerns about any religious system where, good behavior is rewarded with a good afterlife, bad behavior is rewarded with a bad afterlife. And you see it in a lot of religions. You have reincarnation where, like, if you live a bad life, you reincarnate as a cow, which, again, I don't know if I would mind being a cow. I mean, cows are cute. But anyway, um, you have the reward for being good. Um, and, I have concerns about whether or not good, as defined by the God of those religions, lines up with good as defined by the people who follow those religions. Because, what if, there's a God that actually wants us to, steal from each other, lie and cheat and harm each other. And when we're not doing that because we don't like being stolen from, lied to, hurt by each other, we're pissing off that God. You know, does the interest of the god line up with the interest of the people? And if not, then do we have this ass backward system where some sadistic god is punishing the people who do good and rewarding the bad evildoers?
This, of course, does not need to be the case. Some of the world's greatest humanitarians, some of the most influential figures today promoting peace and justice efforts, are not adherents to a religion, but
Yes, this is true. There are good religious people and bad religious people, as well as good non-religious people and bad non-religious people. Um, and this is why I always drive home the point that your religious beliefs don't generally affect how you act. I do things to help other people because A, um, I want to promote that behavior. And when people are helped, in a time of need, they will be more prone to feeling a sense of obligation when someone else is in need. That indirectly benefits me, but also because I would want that same thing done for me. And, the whole golden rule of treat others as you want to be treated by them. Um, I don't think that's the best rule because some people are masochists, but, I think that in general, the act of helping, and, I'm generous to a fault. I'm working on that. I've, you know, ended up being tricked out of a lot of money by people who have pretended to be in need. And, like, I would rather be tricked and, be open to helping people than not help somebody who's genuinely in need. But I do gotta be a little bit better at, like, anyway. I would rather people be helpful to one another for the sake of being helpful and, not having any concern about, you know, whether or not there's a God. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care. It doesn't really concern me right now.
live morally out of a commitment to humanity, a recognition of our interconnectedness, an acknowledgement that there is something good in itself about loving one another, about sacrifice. And so I ask you, are you a good atheist? Even though there may be no eternal reward or punishment, even though you're free to do whatever you want.
You know, I don't know if I can adequately assess my own self in terms of what good I do and what things, I do that aren't good. Because, A, I don't always know the long term effects. I have run a number of, like outreach programs both in Rhode Island and Colorado for like underprivileged students. And it may be 20 years before, I know, did those students go on and become successful, academically, financially, yada yada. And, at the same time, if they do, was my being involved in their lives for however long I was at all a factor? I don't know. Um, is the intentionality of my actions enough to um, determine whether or not I'm good? I don't know. Um, have I done more net good than harm? I don't know. And I don't think I should be the one to assess that because, um, well, most people have a bias where they think that they are better than they actually are. Some people who have very serious self esteem issues, myself included, may undervalue our impact. And so, in either case, I don't think a person in and of themselves is the best metric for whether or not they are a good person.
Do you choose the virtuous path that benefits not only you, but others? I hope so. The world needs good atheists. Now, of course, the word good points to more than just a sense of morality. It also represents an evaluation of aptitude. When
Well, I suppose. Um, like, I think that we should be held to the standard of doing as much good as we're capable of doing. Like, I don't have billions of dollars to donate to charity, but Jeff Bezos does. And so, if I were to donate, $150 to a charity, and Jeff Bezos was also to donate $150 towards charity, um, my contribution should definitely be viewed as more altruistic, because I would be donating a much, much larger proportion of the amount of money that I actually have to a charitable cause. And, you know, my willingness to, as a busy, broke ass college graduate student, um, do anything that helps other people should be weighed a lot more heavily than somebody who, you know, can afford to take a couple of days off of work, and not get paid, and has the means to travel anywhere in the world and things like that. Like, I can't right now like fly to Africa to like teach people how to farm. I can't engineer technology. Like, my realm is biology, and so there are things that I'm just not. I don't have the training to do. I don't have the capacity to do them, and I think when you bring an aptitude, I think you need to consider that we're all different, and I think we're getting away from the distinction between theists and atheists, because I don't think necessarily your religious beliefs have anything to do with your ability to learn how to help people.
When I ask if you are a good atheist, I want to know if you're good at being an atheist. Do you articulate why you don't believe in God in a coherent way?
I'm not obligated to, but I do. Um, if you really want to know, one of the things for me is that, um, well, I'd say, not that I wasn't really raised in a religious household. Um, and, I know plenty of people who were, raised in very, very religious households to the point where they kind of got squeezed out of the religion because of how, obnoxious it was. That wasn't me. For me, I started, I'd say like sixth grade, learning about other religions and how, like, people are very ardent about their particular religious belief, despite other just ardent believers being out there. And, when you examine, like, if you're taught Catholicism as a kid, and then, that you reject Islam and you reject Hinduism and things like that, while accepting Catholicism just because you're taught it, I think that, kind of understanding that, you know, it's possible to reject a number of things that you haven't been introduced to without examining their truth value, and then accept something you've been taught without examining its truth value. And that was very powerful for me, where I just kind of decided to look into, what are the claims of this, Christianity. I grew up in Connecticut, where a lot of people are at least raised Catholic, very loosely, I'd say. I'm not saying that there are no, strictly religious people in Connecticut, but it's, not like the Deep South, not like, Utah. It's, religion's not a big part of the culture, in general. And I kind of realized that, like, some of the claims being made at church and, by people who were teaching me religious stuff just didn't add up. They didn't make sense. Um, the whole basis of Christianity, where, God creates everything perfect, but he also creates a way for things to be messed up, by having the serpent in the garden, and then that somehow makes the, you know, earth fallen, and then Jesus has to come to earth to fix it. And it's just God sending himself as his son onto the earth to be sacrificed so that God can stop judging us by his own standards. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, it's not just that because it doesn't make sense, it can't be true. There are a lot of things that don't make sense to me that are true. I'm thinking about, like, epigenetics. I have a very basic understanding of that. But anyway, um, I wanted evidence for, something as serious as, like you were born sinful, and if you don't accept Jesus and live in a way that Jesus would want you to live, um, you will go to hell. And, if I'm going to alter the way that I live my life in any way, shape, or form, I need to have good reason to, and there is not good evidence for any of the claims made by Christianity or any religion for that matter. And, the fact that people have not been able to conclusively prove the existence of a God as of now, um, leads me to not believe. Um, and, I'm skeptical of, everything. I got into an argument with somebody about insect rearing and whether or not inbreeding is a cause of fertility problems several generations in. And I, suspect that it's more of a nutritional problem, and I'm not gonna, get into that too much right here because that's not the point of this video. But, it's not just the God question that I am skeptical of. I'm skeptical of, basically any claim that anybody makes. I like to fact check and I like to, verify and I like to scrutinize. And one of the big red flags for me is people who get mad at my scrutiny, people who are expecting that I'm just going to take them on their word.
Or you just think that religion's dumb, so use logical fallacies? Have you explored the depths of your mind and heart, asking
So what logical fallacies do you think that we're using?
the real
Whoops.
questions of life, of death, faith, and reason, seeking to understand what this human life is really about? You just not want to go to church, so this'll do.
Alright, just a real quick thing. You can still believe in a God of some sort without going to church. There are non-denominational Christians. There are people who believe things without participating in the rituals. And, you really... I gotta be honest here. This comes across as a little bit ableist because there are people who just don't have the ability to go into a church. Um, you know, Churches are very loud, they're very stuffy. There are a lot of problems associated, if somebody's on the spectrum, for example, and they have sensory issues. Speaking from experience, by the way, the fucking organ music and, all the noises and, people getting up and down and, somebody yelling into a microphone, that's just overwhelming. And to think that, you know, your level of belief has anything to do with your level of attendance at a weekly service is a little bit myopic and a little bit just it comes across as a little bit I don't know, uninformed. You haven't you have this dichotomy of, hey, the what's it called, the only people who believe are regular churchgoers, and people who aren't churchgoers must not believe, and you must reject God if you don't want to go to a church. And that's not the case all the time. Um, you know, I personally found church to be a waste of time. I found it boring. I found it just a little bit too loud. I found it a little bit, intimidating. We had, and like especially like during the weekends, like especially like my mother wasn't really religious until her mother got sick and died, and then she had like a couple of years where she was religious for a little while, and so we would have to go to church, and it's like I could be home cleaning, I could be home tending to caterpillars, I could be home, you know, um, cooking food for us for later. Like there are like 10 million things I could do aside from going to church. Um, and I got to deal with people that I don't like when I go to church, and it's, loud, and it's just ridiculous, and it's not anything about whether or not I believe in a God, it's about going into a building where, you have to sit still for 45 minutes to an hour. Not an easy thing for me to do, by the way. I also tend to be a second shift person where, kind of my peak productivity, peak activity levels are, starting in the mid to late afternoon, extending, close to midnight. Like I will on a given day, be very sluggish, when I first get up in the morning. And, it's not for a couple hours that I'm like, all right, let me, feed all the animals, water things, blah, 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 whatever I have to do during the day. Um, and so there are reasons besides non belief that people don't go to church.
Have you read the critical atheist thinkers of history? People like Nietzsche, Sartre, Feuerbach, Heidegger.
I've read a few of them. I do a lot of reading when I can. I don't dabble that much into philosophy just because it doesn't really pique my interest. And again, if something doesn't engage me and I don't have to do it for like a class, I'm probably not going to do it. And it's not because I'm closed minded, it's because I have fucking ADHD. And unless it's within, a few hours of me taking my Adderall, I just don't have the attention span to sit there. And, it's been bad to the point, like it has affected things that I do care about. I can't tell you how many times I've left animal cages open and like come back an hour later and there are like Luna moth caterpillars all over the fucking place or something like that. Like it is very hard for me to sit down, relax, and focus on something. Like when I make these videos, I will often pause the recording of me making the video. Not always, but very often. Pause the recording of me making the video. Walk a lap around the house, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever, spend 15 minutes away from the computer screen before coming back. I might do that several times throughout the making of a video so that when I'm making a video where I'm responding, you know, the video itself might be, 45 minutes long, but it takes like 2.5 hours for me to actually make the video. Then I gotta go through and edit, blah, blah, blah. And, we all work differently. And I think that there's a level of accessibility that modern Christianity itself doesn't real. I mean, Christianity historically, like when masses used to be all in Latin and only people with a certain amount of money knew Latin and shit like that. But even today, you know, and I get it. You, this is not a criticism of you. You are used to, reaching people who do sit in front of a computer all day. I've had a lot of problems because I'm 26 years old. Most people my age have very good computer skills because that's what they know. They don't know how to, check a plant to make sure it's properly watered. They don't know how to tell if, a caterpillar is about to molt and maybe not to bother it, shit like that. Um, they don't know how to measure the head capsules of prepupal insects to see if it's a male or female, like some of those fine skills that I do. But the assumption is going to be that somebody of my demographic, as far as age, is going to be at least inclined to be behind a computer screen. And I'm not that way. I am kind of a hummingbird in my computer usage where, like if I have to do something, I will go on the computer, spend as long as I can there, take a break, walk around and do whatever, come back after, an hour and, just slowly but surely work away at what I have to get done because I just don't have the attention span. And, it's good and bad. It's good because I'm not some slug that's stuck in front of a screen like a lot of people are, but it is bad because it's becoming the new means of communication between people. And it's upsetting, but it's, something I'm trying to adapt to.
People who really ask the challenging questions, who pose thoughtful insights of the world. Or you just stick with people like Richard Dawkins, people who provide great sound.
I don't like Richard Dawkins. I've read some of his work. I think he's a brilliant biologist. Um, that being said, I do not. Well, here's the thing. Just because somebody's a famous atheist and you happen to be an atheist does not mean you have to take everything they say as gospel. You don't have to agree with all of their points. You don't even have to be all that familiar with them. Richard Dawkins is not the spokesperson for atheism or any given atheist. And, I think that, he is an ass. I think that there are unsavory things about him and some of the things that he says and does. But, you know, I also try to consider people's argument. I don't want to commit the genetic fallacy. I don't want to say, well, Richard Dawkins has bad points because he's transphobic. Well, whether or not Richard Dawkins' points about genetics are valid has nothing to do with his position on trans people. Him as a person, I think, he's reprehensible for some of the things he said about transgender people. However, I, don't immediately dismiss everything he says in regards to other topics just because I disagree with him on one particular topic. And I'm the same way with everybody, but again, I don't, worship. I'm not so familiar with Dawkins and anything he said to, you know, I kind of think for myself, and a lot of us do.
Sound bites for the cause, yippee, but do little to add anything to the world other than strawman arguments and divisiveness.
I mean, if you can give an example of like a strawman argument that any of us make, and here's the thing. I know a lot of internet atheists like to make fun of religion and make memes that aren't completely accurate representations of what the religion itself is claiming. You have to understand that some of that is just humor, some of that is just a meme, some of that is a joke, and these people know that that's not actually what the belief is. And, it can be hard to tell what that person is actually thinking the belief says. But there are, you know, immediately dismissing something that's a little bit inaccurate as a straw man is a little bit premature. I think that more often than not, it's somebody, you know, making a quick joke or, kind of trying to understand what the claim is and kind of missing the mark. Straw man is, more of a deliberate misrepresentation. And I suspect that a lot of times it's not a deliberate misrepresentation of a religious claim. It's more of, I don't exactly understand what this is trying to say, but here's my take on it. And I think that this take is bad because whatever.
Have you read for yourself the works of real theologians, people articulating our beliefs in the best way we know how? Karl Rahner, John Henry Newman, Joseph Ratzinger, Augustine of Hippo.
I mean, I could, I'd be open to going and reading some of those works. Yeah, maybe I'll rewatch this and write those people down and you know, look into some of their works. That's fine with me. Like I'm not gonna read, fucking Greg Locke or something like that. But like, if you do actually want me to examine your side, you know, let me know. You know, who gives the most convincing arguments. Let me know who is the most articulate, the most concise. Let me know these things, and I'll look into it.
Hippo, Henri de Lubac? Or do you stick with the simplicity of evangelical pastors from some rural anti-intellectual church?
No. Um, Although, I would be careful about dismissing all evangelical pastors as anti-intellectual. Um, they at least have the smarts to manipulate people.
I ask all of this not to be accusatory, at least not overly accusatory, but to simply challenge you to go deeper in your thought. Simply declaring yourself an atheist and going about your life isn't enough. Just as
To be fair, most Christians that I've seen are the same way. They simply call themselves Christians because it's what they're comfortable with, and they get pissed off if somebody challenges any part of their theology, and they don't want to think outside the box.
saying you're a Christian and never reading the Bible wouldn't be enough. Ask more questions. Read more perspectives. Be able to articulate your understanding of the world with logic and reasoning that will actually add something to the world. Because here's the thing. People of faith need you to be good atheists. We do. As a Christian, I don't want you to be a bad atheist with an unexplored mind just regurgitating fallacies. I want you to ask.
Please, I mean, you said straw man, but please tell me what fallacies, I'm regurgitating. Um, I'd like to know what kinds of logical fallacies have I been guilty of?
Questions that we've never thought to answer. I want you to be so smart that it challenges us to be smarter. As crazy as it sounds, I would much rather you be a good atheist than just an atheist. And so that is my humble message to you, from one believer to a non-believer. We may not agree on much, but that doesn't mean...
I don't know what your positions on things are. You can't say that we don't agree on much. Would you agree that this is a replica of a mountain goat? I mean, you know, what are your thoughts on Phlebodium aureum? This is Phlebodium aureum. This is a large polypodiaceous fern. I think it's like the coolest, most beautiful fern that's ever evolved. Anyway, you know, I don't know, like, I am willing to bet there are more interesting things about you as a person than God, Jesus, Catholicism, blah, blah, blah. You know, um, I would rather, talk to you. Like, I have a lot of Christian friends, and we don't generally talk about Christianity, religion, or anything like that. We talk about, invasive insects. We talk about,
that we don't need each other.
oh, shit. We talk about, questions we have about horticulture. We talk about fucking, um, musicians we like, and, songs that are stuck in our heads, things like that. You know, I don't just if I want to know you, I don't just want to know you um from the are you a believer or non-believer, blah blah blah. I want to know, what kinds of insects are you interested in? What kinds of foods do you like? What are your opinions on veganism? Do you think that vaccines cause autism? Do you think that, like, diseases are the product of the devil? If we really wanted to get into, more religious topics. How do you respond to people who use their religion or their religious beliefs to deny people, certain basic rights? Um, you know, why is God opposed to abortion if there's you know stuff in the Bible about the first breath being when life begins, and all sorts of things like that. If I have questions that don't have to do with God. I would love to have a conversation with you about other things. Um, you know I at the end of the day don't care if you believe in God or not. It's not something that to me is so crucial to a relationship between me and someone else. I might joke around about, like, only being able to date, tolerate, blah blah blah, people who don't believe in God. It's just me joking around. And you know, maybe it's in poor taste to make those jokes. I don't know. Um, but I would rather have conversations with you about other interests. I would seriously doubt that well, maybe you're primary, but the only thing about you is that you're a friar. Um, you know,
Or can't learn something from one another. We do, and we can. Peace and good to you, Father Casey.